It can be daunting trying to figure out how to ship your products from overseas to Amazon, especially if you've never dealt with international shipments before and trying to comprehend all of those confusing shipping terms. In this video, I'll explain what the most common shipment terms mean, which options you should choose, and whether or not you should hire a freight forwarder. But first, my name is Crescent, and if this is our first time meeting, welcome to my channel. My passion is sharing tips and strategies on how you can create a successful Amazon FBA private label business. So if you enjoy videos like this, or especially if you've been around my channel, consider subscribing. All right, let's get started. So before we get into the specifics of arranging your shipment, you need to first understand the process of how overseas shipments work so that when we talk about the different shipping terms and options, you'll understand the differences between them. Now, regardless of the international country your products are shipping from, this process is the same. When your supplier completes your order, your product will be packaged into cartons and pallets for shipping and will begin its journey from your supplier's warehouse floor. It will then make its way from their warehouse to a local seaport or airport, depending on the shipping method. From there, your product will travel from the local port to a domestic port. So that will be the US port or airport if you're selling to the US marketplace. At this time, your shipment will go through customs, and once released, depending on your shipping arrangements, your shipment will go to your freight forwarder's warehouse, then onto Amazon's warehouse. Or the shipment will go to your home or another facility that you've planned before moving on to Amazon. Okay, so now that you understand the different steps that your shipment will go through, let's go over the different shipping options, which are called Incoterms, that you'll encounter the most, and those are EXW, FOB, and DDP. There are several other options, which I'll leave a link to in the description. EXW, which stands for Ex-Works, is where a supplier is only responsible for manufacturing your products. Once complete, you are responsible for arranging the shipment and paying any customs fees from your supplier's warehouse all the way to Amazon. Now, when I say you are responsible, I don't recommend that you actually do all the paperwork and shipping arrangements yourself. There are so many steps and forms that if you mess up just one small detail, your shipment can be stuck, sent back to the country of origin, or cost you a bunch of time, money, and frustration. So I suggest hiring a freight forwarder in these cases. A freight forwarder will streamline the process between you and your supplier so that essentially all you have to do is pay your freight forwarder and everything else is taken care of for you, including paying any customs taxes. So if you're not hiring a freight forwarder, I wouldn't suggest shipping EXW. Now, FOB, which stands for free on board, this is where your supplier is responsible for getting your shipment from their warehouse to their local port. You are then responsible for the shipping arrangements to get your products to Amazon, including paying any customs taxes. Typically, if you go this route, your supplier will quote you a slightly higher unit cost since they have to arrange to get your product to the local port. As you can probably tell, logistically, there isn't much difference between FOB and EXW other than your supplier quoting you a higher unit cost. So again, if you're hiring a freight forwarder, it would make more sense just to get an EXW quote and let your freight forwarder handle the entire shipment. The last term I'm going to cover is DDP, which stands for Delivered Duties Paid. This is where your supplier is responsible for the shipping of your product from their warehouse all the way to Amazon's warehouse, including any customs fees. This is where you don't have to do anything other than pay your supplier, and they will handle the manufacturing of your product and shipping it to Amazon. So in this case, you don't have to hire a freight forwarder and have to deal with a middleman. Although, you may want to get a quote from a freight forwarder, as sometimes it may be less expensive to have a freight forwarder handle the shipment than your supplier, as it's not uncommon for suppliers to inflate the shipping fees. Now, be aware that not every supplier is going to offer these shipping options, and some will prefer one method over another. You'll have to communicate with each one individually to see. Like I mentioned earlier, EXW, FOB, and DDP are the most common shipping options. However, there are many other shipping options that some suppliers will prefer to use. You'll have to decide whether or not you want to work with these suppliers, especially if you plan to handle the shipping arrangements yourself. That's why I suggest that if you're not shipping by DDP, then hire a freight forwarder so that they can streamline the process for you, and it won't matter what type of shipping options your supplier offers since they'll be taking care of it all for you. Now, Here's a few tips that no one else seems to cover. First, shipping by air is the fastest. It typically takes 7 to 10 days, but it costs the most. Shipping by sea can take 4 to 6 weeks, so make sure you plan accordingly. Beginners are often asking if they're getting a fair price on their shipping quotes. Estimating your shipping costs is difficult because it varies by size, weight, and volume. A general rule of thumb you can use is that air cargo will cost around $5 a kilogram. Air courier with FedEx, UPS, or DHL is around $8 per kilogram, whereas shipping by sea is around $450 per cubic meter. I'll leave a link in the description to a calculator that will help you figure out these numbers. Another common question is how much duty do you have to pay and how do you pay them? The amount of taxes you have to pay is dependent on the country you're importing your product from and what it's made out of. Estimating the duties isn't easy, so don't be surprised if your supplier wants you to pay the duties separately from their manufacturing and shipping quote. For the most part, the supplier and even your freight forwarder won't know how much the duty will be until your shipment clears customs. So also know that your quote from your freight forwarder often doesn't include the duty. I'll leave a link in the description to a form where you can look up the HS codes to find out how much duties are. On that note, paying for duties isn't complicated. If your supplier offers DDP shipping, they will pay the duties on your behalf, so you just have to pay your supplier. Likewise, if you've hired a freight forwarder, they will pay your duties on your behalf, and then they will bill you for it. However, if you've arranged the shipping yourself, your carrier such as UPS, FedEx, or DHL will pay the duty on your behalf, and they will release the shipment to you once you've settled the balance on your invoice. Lastly, I have 2 pro tips for you. First, if you hire a freight forwarder, it's typically not recommended to have your supplier palletize your shipment. This is because Amazon has strict guidelines that overseas suppliers may not know about or don't care to follow. So if they do palletize it, your freight forwarder will have to re-palletize it once it reaches their facility, which will add to your costs. Also, you'll be paying for the added weight of the pallets all the way from the origin country. The other pro tip is if you're shipping products domestically to Amazon, for example, if you're shipping from your home in the US to Amazon or your freight forwarder's facility in the US to Amazon, then you can save a ton of money if you use Amazon's trucking service through Seller Central, where you can take advantage of hugely discounted rates through UPS and FedEx. You can get shipping quotes when you're completing your shipping plan in Seller Central. Take note that SBD takes 2 to 3 business days and LTL takes 2 to 3 weeks, so plan accordingly. Let me know in the comments what shipping methods you used and what your experience was like. I hope you now have a better understanding of how the shipping process works and what you can expect when arranging international shipments. All right, thanks for watching. If you found value in this video, you know what to do. Hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. And to make sure you never miss a video, click that bell icon to turn on notifications. There's also a link in the description to our community forums, which you should totally join. And if you're looking for more tips and strategy videos, click or tap over here. And as always, thanks for watching.